The wine caught the light wrong. Green where it should have been red. Zara Brooks noticed. Her husband, the Korean Mafia boss sitting 18 inches away at the family banquet, didn't. She watched his hand move toward the glass. 3 seconds. That's all she had. 3 seconds to decide whether to save him or finally let go. She reached across the table, lifted the glass, and drank. But here's what nobody knew in that moment. Not her husband. Not his mother watching from the head of the table. Not even the cousin who'd poisoned that wine. Zara didn't just drink it to save him. Part of her drank it to escape. 7 years of being erased does that to a woman who's forgotten she's allowed to exist. This is Zara. 29 years old. Howard University graduate with a degree in chemistry. Once ambitious. Once loud. Once unapologetically herself. For 7 years, she's held everything together. Learned Korean. Wore the hanboks. Straightened her hair, then stopped, then twisted it into styles that made his mother frown less. Smiled through the comments. Absorbed the comparisons. Became smaller and smaller until she fit into the negative space his family had carved out for the black wife. She's good at it. So good that everyone stopped noticing it was killing her. Her husband, Seo Min-jae, runs a crime empire. Important work. Dangerous work. Work that requires his complete focus. So Zara became background. Decorative. Useful for appearances. Essential for his image of being modern. And completely unseen. Tonight at this family banquet, that invisibility is about to cost her everything. In the heart of Seoul's elite crime families, there are rules even bosses must follow. Rules about loyalty. About bloodlines. About protecting what's yours. But there's one rule nobody talks about. The one that matters most. Never erase the woman holding your image together. On this particular Friday evening in April, that rule was about to be broken in the most devastating way possible. If this story is keeping you on the edge of your seat, let me know where you're watching from. Drop your city or country below and tell me, what shocked you most about Zara's choice? The poison? The private banquet hall at Gwangju Palace. Silk wallpaper in deep burgundy. Hand-carved rosewood table. Crystal stemware catching the glow of the antique chandelier overhead. The smell of galbi and expensive perfume and unspoken resentment. Left side of the table. Zara. 29 years old. Champagne-colored hanbok that washes out her brown skin. Kanzashi pins digging into her scalp. Hands folded. Spine straight. The portrait of obedience. Center. Seo Min-jae. The Korean Mafia boss everyone called untouchable. Midnight blue suit. Italian leather shoes. Currently delivering a speech about territorial expansion while his wife sits silent beside him. Not unusual. He'd given a business call during her birthday dinner last month, too. Right side. Seo Yoon, the younger cousin. Charcoal suit. Sweating despite the air conditioning that kept the room at exactly 70 degrees. And Madame Seo, 68 years old, crimson silk jacket, silver hair and a perfect chignon, watching everything with the stillness of a woman who'd survived 4 decades in this world by noticing what others dismissed. This is how power arranges itself. This is the geometry of a family banquet that looks perfect from the outside. From the inside, it was already shattering. For 7 years, Zara had been the family's buffer. Smoothing over Min-jae's coldness with foreign business partners who expected warmth. Translating his mother's cutting remarks into jokes she could laugh off. absorbing the auntie's questions about why there were no children yet, why her Korean wasn't better, why she insisted on wearing those braids to last year's Chuseok dinner. She was good at reading rooms. Had to be. Her survival depended on it. Tonight, she was reading everything. The senior advisor, Mr. Park, sitting 3 seats down, kept glancing at Seo-yun. Quick. Nervous. Like he was waiting for something to go wrong. Seo-yun's fingers drummed the table. Once. Twice. 3 times. Stopped. Zara knew that tell. Her nephew did the same thing when he'd broken something and was waiting to see if anyone noticed. The rhythm of guilt. The sommelier arrived with the wine Min-jae had ordered without asking her preference. The bow was too deep. The pour too careful. My apologies for the delay, Mr. Seo. We had to retrieve this from the private cellar. Half a second too late. Too rehearsed. Like he'd practiced it. Zara's pulse quickened. Not panic. Pattern recognition. Something was wrong. The 2015 Chateau Margaux. Expensive. The kind of wine you order to impress the Chinese delegation Min-jae was courting for the Busan expansion. Opened with ceremony. Cork presented. Wine poured with precision into the baccarat glasses, the ones Madame Seo had gifted them for their 3rd anniversary, with pointed comments about appreciating quality. Placed in front of Min-jae. He didn't look at it. He was too busy explaining to the table why traditional operations needed modern adaptation. His voice carried. Confident. Dismissive of the old ways. Dismissive of his mother's tight-lipped disapproval. Dismissive of Zara, who'd just watched the wine catch the light at the wrong angle. That faint shimmer. Green at the rim. Like oil. Like death. Her chemistry degree hadn't been decorative after all. Aconite. Wolfsbane. Colorless when pure, but crude extracts left that telltale iridescence in acidic solutions. Fatal dose, 2 to 4 milligrams. Symptoms, numbness, nausea, cardiac arrhythmia. Time to death, 20 minutes to 2 hours depending on concentration. Her eyes found Seo-yun's. He was watching the glass. Not Min-jae. The glass. His breathing was shallow. His jaw tight. She looked at Mr. Park. At the sommelier retreating too quickly toward the kitchen. At Madame Seo, who'd gone very still. 3 seconds to decide. Save the man who'd spent 7 years telling her she was too loud, too American, too black, too much, never enough. Or let karma pour itself. Min-jae reached for the glass. Zara's hand moved faster. Let me taste it first, Jagiya, she said, her voice honey-sweet with a bitterness he'd never learned to hear. You always say I need to appreciate the finer things. She lifted the glass to her lips. Madame Seo's hand stopped halfway to her own wine. Seo-yun's breathing stopped altogether. Min-jae didn't notice. He was laughing at something Mr. Park had said about the shipping routes. Zara drank. The wine was excellent. Premier cru. Velvety tannins. Notes of blackcurrant and cedar. And underneath it all, the metallic burn of poison designed to stop her heart. She set the glass down gently. Smiled. Folded her hands back in her lap. And waited for someone to finally see her. 7 years ago, Zara Brooks walked into the fundraiser at the Korean Cultural Center in Washington, D.C. wearing a gold slip dress and her natural hair in a twist-up that caught the light like a crown. She was 22, 6 months out of Howard, working at a pharmaceutical startup, and entirely too confident for a woman who was about to meet the man who would teach her how to disappear. Seo Min-jae noticed her first. Later, he'd tell people she'd pursued him. The revisionist history started early. He was charming then. Asked about her research. Listened when she explained polymer chemistry. Laughed at her jokes. Called her brilliant. When he asked for her number, she gave it without hesitation. Why wouldn't she? She'd spent 4 years becoming someone who took up space unapologetically. The erasure started small. Suggestions, not demands. 6 months in, Korean women don't usually wear their hair like that to formal events. But it's interesting. She straightened it for his mother's birthday. He smiled. Kissed her temple. Said she looked elegant. The compliment felt like acceptance. It was a trap. 1 year, I hired a tutor for you. Korean lessons. It'll help you connect with the family. The tutor corrected her pronunciation with theatrical sighs. His mother asked why her accent was still so thick. Min-jae translated the question with a tight smile. Zara apologized. Started practicing 3 hours a day. 2 years, the engagement. His mother presented her with a hanbok for the ceremony. Pale pink. Zara's skin disappeared against it. Tradition is important, Madame Seo said in Korean. Min-jae didn't translate. Didn't need to. The message was clear. Zara wore it anyway. 3 years, the wedding. Her family filled 3 tables. His family filled the entire ballroom. During the reception, an auntie asked loudly in Korean, "How long until she gets pregnant and gives us a proper heir?" Zara understood by then. Kept smiling. Min-jae was across the room, discussing business. He didn't come back for 40 minutes. For years, she stopped wearing bright colors. Min-jae said it was too attention-seeking for a boss's wife. She traded her statement earrings for pearls. He said she was finally learning elegance. 5 years, she stopped correcting people who mispronounced her name. Started going by the Korean name Madame Seo had suggested. G1. It means wisdom, they told her. It meant erasure. 6 years, she watched herself in the mirror one morning and couldn't remember what her laugh used to sound like. The real one. Before she learned to make it quieter. 7 years, tonight. The banquet. The poison. The choice. Zara had become exactly what they wanted. A ghost in a champagne hanbok. The wine shimmered wrong and Zara's training kicked in before her survival instinct could. Aconite. Definitely aconite. The green iridescence at the rim was textbook. She'd studied it during her toxicology elective at Howard. Professor Chin had called it the Queen of Poisons because it mimicked heart failure so perfectly. Elegant. Undetectable without the right tests. Fatal in doses smaller than a sugar packet. Her eyes tracked the room in segments. Seo Yoon first. His chest rose and fell too quickly. Shallow breaths. His fingers had moved from drumming to gripping the edge of the table. White knuckles. The physical tells of a man watching a bomb he'd set, waiting for detonation. Mr. Park second. He wasn't eating. Hadn't touched his food in 3 minutes. Just pushing galbi around his plate while his eyes darted between Seo Yoon and Min-jae's wine glass. Complicit. Definitely complicit. The sommelier third. Already gone. Disappeared into the kitchen the moment after pouring. Exit strategy. Smart. Min-jae reached for the glass. Zara had 3 options. She calculated them with the same methodical precision she'd once used for chemical equations. Option 1, warn him. Shout. Knock the glass over. Play the hysterical wife. He'd thank her later, maybe. In private. In public, he'd be humiliated that she'd caused a scene. That she'd revealed vulnerability. Madame Seo would say she overreacted. The family would remember her as dramatic. Min-jae would remember her as the woman who embarrassed him in front of the Chinese delegation. Option 2, stay silent. Let him drink. Watch the man who'd spent 7 years erasing her finally disappear himself. She'd be the grieving widow. Tragic. Blameless. Free. The thought didn't horrify her. That was the horrifying part. Option 3, drink it herself. The option slid into her consciousness like relief. Like exhaling after holding her breath for 7 years. If she drank it, she'd save him. The family would see her sacrifice. Maybe Min-jae would finally see her. Really see her. And if she didn't survive, if the dosage was high enough, if help came too late, she'd be free anyway. No more handbox that erased her skin. No more Korean lessons where her tongue failed around sounds designed to reshape her. No more family dinners where she was simultaneously required and resented. No more performances. No more disappearing. Seo Yun's breathing had gone completely still now. Watching. Waiting. Min-jae's fingers closed around the stem of the glass. Zara moved. Let me taste it first, Jagia. Her voice was steady. Sweet. The perfect wife. Her hand was already lifting the glass to her lips. 3 seconds to decide between saving him or saving herself. She chose both. She chose neither. She drank. The wine hit her tongue like velvet wrapped around a blade. First, the tannins. Rich. Complex. Everything a 2015 Chateau Margaux should be. Then, the metal. Sharp. Bitter. The taste of chemistry gone wrong. The taste of someone's carefully calculated murder. Zara swallowed. Set the glass down with perfect composure. Folded her hands back in her lap like she'd been taught. Excellent choice, she said to Min-jae. Her voice didn't shake. 7 years of performance had taught her that much. He didn't even look at her. Just nodded absently, already turned back to the Chinese delegate across the table. As I was saying, the Busan expansion gives us direct access to 3 additional shipping routes. The infrastructure is already in place. We're simply optimizing existing channels. The burn started in her throat. Spreading. A slow fire that had nothing to do with alcohol. Zara knew the progression. Had memorized it during late-night study sessions that felt like another lifetime. First the numbness. Lips, tongue, throat. Then the nausea. Then the cardiovascular symptoms. Arrhythmia. Hypotension. If the dose was high enough, complete cardiac arrest within the hour. She wondered distantly which one she'd get. Her lips were already tingling. She pressed them together. Reached for her water glass. Her hand trembled slightly. She steadied it. Drank. The water tasted like copper. Min-jae was gesturing now, animated in a way he never was with her. The profit margin increases by 32% in the first quarter alone. Mr. Chen, I think you'll find our projections conservative. 18 inches away, his wife's heart was beginning to skip beats. The room tilted slightly. Zara gripped the edge of the table. Madame Sio's eyes flickered toward her. Brief. Assessing. Then back to her son's presentation. Zara's throat was closing. Not metaphorically. Actually closing. She tried to swallow. Couldn't. The panic she'd been holding back clawed up her chest. She'd miscalculated. The dose was higher than she'd thought. This wasn't a cry for help. This was an execution she'd volunteered for. Min-jae laughed at something Mr. Chen said. The sound was very far away now. Everything was far away. The chandelier above blurred into streaks of gold. The voices around the table became water. Her last thought before the darkness came wasn't regret. It was bitter, crystalline clarity. At least now he'll remember my name. The room spun. Zara collapsed forward, her head hitting the table with a sound Min-jae didn't hear over his own voice explaining shipping logistics. 18 inches. That's how far away he was when his wife stopped breathing. The sound of Zara's head hitting the table cut through Min-jae's presentation like a gunshot. But it was his mother who moved first. Madame Sio was out of her chair before the crystal had stopped rattling. Before Min-jae had even turned his head. Before anyone else had processed what the sound meant. Myeomchwara. Stop. Her voice cracked across the room like a whip. Every conversation died instantly. She was already at Zara's side, fingers pressed to her daughter-in-law's throat. Checking for a pulse. Her face went white. Then hard. The transformation took less than a second. Min-jae stood. Finally. Mother, what? Ibul bwa. Look at her mouth. Madame Sio tilted Zara's head back. Her lips were blue. Foam gathered at the corners. Her breathing was shallow, rattling. Doke. Poison. The word dropped into the silence like a stone into still water. Ripples of shock spread across every face. Except two. Madame Sio's eyes swept the table. Decades of surviving this world had taught her exactly where to look. Not at the victim. At the guilty. Seo Yoon was pressed back in his chair, hands shaking so violently he'd tucked them under the table. His face was gray. His breathing sharp and quick like a cornered animal. Mr. Park had gone completely still. Frozen. A prey response. Seo Yoon. Madame Sio's voice dropped to something colder than Min-jae had ever heard from her. She switched to rapid Korean, each word a scalpel. Show me your hands. I'm not, Seo Yoon stammered in Korean. Jaegeum. Now. His hands came up. Trembling. Guilty. Madame Sio's eyes went to Min-jae's wine glass. Still sitting where Zara had placed it. She lifted it. Tilted it under the chandelier light. The green shimmer caught the light like an accusation. Aconitum. She said it in Latin. Clinical. Certain. Wolfsbane. She drank your wine, Min-jae. Your wife drank your wine. The words hit him like a physical blow. Min-jae's world stopped. Not slowed. Stopped. Complete suspended animation where everything crystallized into unbearable clarity. Zara. Collapsed. Blue-lipped. Dying. His wine. Poisoned. His wife had drunk poison meant for him. His cousin's shaking hands. His mother's voice cutting through his paralysis. Usurul bulio. Call the doctor. But Min-jae couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. couldn't do anything but stare at Zara's motionless form slumped against the table in the champagne hanbok he'd barely glanced at when she'd entered the room. He didn't know how long he'd been sitting 18 inches away from her while she died. He didn't know when she'd stopped being background noise and become a corpse. His mother slapped him. Hard. Across the face. A Najwo. Hold her. Finally, Min-jae moved. Min-jae lifted Zara from the chair and her weight was wrong. Not heavy. Not light. Just wrong. Unfamiliar. Like holding a stranger. When had he last held her? 3 years? 4? He couldn't remember. Couldn't remember the last time he'd touched his wife beyond perfunctory kisses for appearances, hands on her lower back guiding her through galas, the mechanical choreography of a marriage performed for audiences. He lowered himself to the floor. Cradled her against his chest. Her head lolled against his shoulder. Dead weight. The phrase took on new horror. Yalmana Gialio? How long? His mother was on the phone with their private physician. Her voice was steady. Controlled. Everything Min-jae's wasn't. 11 minutes, someone said. Mr. Park maybe. Min-jae couldn't tell. Couldn't focus on anything except the woman in his arms who was breathing but shouldn't be. Each breath too shallow. Too slow. Wrong. He pressed his fingers to her throat like his mother had. Found the pulse. Thready. Irregular. Her heart was struggling. Fighting. Losing. Zara. His voice cracked on her name. Her real name. Not Jiwon. Not the Korean name his mother had gifted her like a leash. Zara, stay with me. No response. Her eyes were half open. Unseeing. Pupils blown wide. His hands were wet. He looked down. Not blood. Sweat. Her skin was slick with it. Cold sweat. Shock. Her body trying desperately to process the poison killing it. Or tears. God. Were those tears on her cheeks? Had she been crying when she drank? Had she known what she was doing? The question opened up an abyss he couldn't look into. 11 minutes became 12. 13. Time stretched. Became elastic. Each second lasting hours. Each minute compressing into heartbeats. Min-jae counted them. Hers. Weak and irregular against his palm. He'd forgotten the specific rhythm of her breathing. The small catch she made when she slept. The way she used to sigh when he came home late. He'd forgotten all of it. Tuned it out. Relegated it to background noise beneath the more important frequencies of business, expansion, power. Now it was the only sound in the world. Madame Seo knelt beside them. Pressed a cool cloth to Zara's forehead. He's 3 minutes away. 3 minutes. 180 seconds. 11 more heartbeats if Zara's pulse kept weakening at this rate. Min-jae held her tighter. His expensive suit was soaked now. Her sweat. Maybe his. He couldn't tell where she ended and he began. Couldn't remember the last time he'd been this close to her. Couldn't remember why he'd ever pulled away. I'm sorry. He whispered it into her hair. I'm sorry. Please. Zara, please. 14 minutes. She stopped breathing. 5 days later, Min-jae walked into the private hospital room carrying 24 white roses and a solution to a problem he didn't understand. Zara was awake. propped against pillows, and 4 in her left arm. Heart monitor beeping steadily. Alive. The doctors had called it a miracle. Said another 30 seconds without intervention and the cardiac arrest would have been irreversible. Min-jae had written them each a check with too many zeros. Payment for miracles. It's what he knew how to do. I brought these for you. He set the roses on the bedside table. Expensive. White. Classic. Zara looked at them with an expression he couldn't read. I'm allergic to white roses. He stopped. What? White roses. I break out in hives. I told you on our second date. Her voice was flat. Hoarse from the intubation. Empty of everything except facts. He'd forgotten. Of course he'd forgotten. I'll have them removed. He gestured to the door where his assistant waited. Made the problem disappear with a hand signal. Easy. Efficient. Zara watched the roses leave. Said nothing. Min-jae sat in the chair beside her bed. Expensive leather. He'd had it brought in. The standard hospital furniture wasn't acceptable. He'd also had the room upgraded. Private suite. South-facing windows. The best care money could buy. Money. He was good at that. I've already arranged for increased security, he said. Started his presentation. The one he'd rehearsed. 24-hour detail. Rotating shifts. I've also hired a personal chef. Korean and Western cuisine. Whatever you prefer. And the penthouse you mentioned wanting 3 years ago? The one overlooking Han River? I purchased it yesterday. We can move in next month. Zara stared at him. You remember I mentioned a penthouse 3 years ago. Of course. But not the roses. He shifted. Zara. What else are you buying me? She tilted her head. The movement looked wrong. Too deliberate. Like she was studying a stranger. A car? Jewelry? A new wardrobe? I want you to be comfortable. Safe. Safe. She repeated the word like it was foreign. You want me safe. After what happened? What happened, she interrupted, her voice still flat, is that I drank poison meant for you. And you're responding by upgrading my amenities. I'm trying to make this right. Are you? The question hung in the air. Simple. Devastating. Min-jae had a list. Solutions. Purchases. Arrangements. Everything designed to fix this. To compensate. To move forward. Everything except the 3 words she needed. I see you. I'm sorry. I was wrong. He'd built an empire on strategy. On calculated moves. On turning every problem into a transaction. But his wife wasn't a business deal. And he had no idea what to do with that. Madame Seo arrived on the 6th day carrying nothing but a question Zara wasn't ready to answer. She dismissed Min-jae's security detail with a look. Closed the door. Sat in the leather chair her son had purchased. For a long moment, she said nothing. Just studied Zara with eyes that had survived 4 decades of reading people who lied professionally. Then she spoke. In English. Unaccented. Perfect. You speak English. Zara's voice came out broken. Surprised. I was educated at Cambridge. Madame Seo folded her hands in her lap. Composed. I have always spoken English. I chose not to. With you. The revelation landed like a second poisoning. 7 years of struggling through Korean while her mother-in-law had understood every English word. Every frustration Zara had whispered to herself. Every moment she thought she had privacy in her own language. Why? Zara whispered. Because I wanted to see if you would try. If you would bend. Madame Seo's expression didn't change. You did. Completely. I underestimated how far. Silence stretched between them. The heart monitor beeped. Steady. Alive. Accusatory. Did you drink it to save him? Madame Seo asked. Simple. Direct. Or to leave him? Zara's throat closed. Not from poison this time. From truth. I don't know, she whispered. Yes, you do. The words cracked something open. Something Zara had been holding closed with both hands for 6 days. For 7 years. Both. Her voice broke. I drank it for both reasons. I saw the poison and I thought if I saved him, maybe he'd finally see me. Really see me. And if I didn't survive, I wouldn't have to keep disappearing anymore. Tears came. Hot. Shameful. Honest. I was so tired, Zara continued, the words pouring out now like blood from a wound. Tired of being erased. Tired of apologizing for existing. Tired of making myself smaller and smaller until I forgot what my actual shape was. And I thought, God, I thought dying might be easier than one more family dinner where I'm decoration and disappointment simultaneously. Madame Seo's composure fractured. Just slightly. A tremor at her mouth. A brightness in her eyes. She blinked away. I did this to you, she said quietly. We did this. Min Jae. Myself. The family. We took a brilliant woman and made her believe she needed our permission to exist. Yes, Zara said. Simply. Truthfully. I'm sorry. Madame Seo's voice cracked on the words. I'm so deeply sorry. It was the first real apology Zara had received. It broke them both. Min Jae found Seo Yun in the basement of the family compound, hands zip-tied to a chair, face already swelling from the initial interrogation. Traditional. Expected. The way these things were handled. He had his gun. His judgment. His rage at being betrayed by blood. Then Zara walked in. She shouldn't have been out of bed. The doctors had said 2 more days minimum. But she stood in the doorway in hospital-issued clothes, for port still taped to her inner elbow, and her presence stopped everything. Zara. Min Jae's voice was sharp. Protective. Wrong. You shouldn't be here. Neither should he. She nodded at Seo Yun. But here we are. About to witness an execution. He tried to kill me. No. Zara walked further into the room. Each step measured. Deliberate. He tried to kill you. I drank it instead. There's a difference. Seo Yun's head hung low. Defeated. Waiting for the bullet he knew was coming. Min Jae raised the gun. He deserves to die. Maybe. Zara's voice was steady. Calm. The calmness of someone who'd already survived their own death. But let me ask you something first. If you kill him for trying to poison you with one glass of wine, what should happen to the man who's been poisoning me for 7 years? The gun lowered. Slightly. That's different, Min-jae said. Is it? Zara stepped closer. Close enough that he could see the purple shadows under her eyes. The hollowness the poison had left behind. He tried to stop your heart with aconite. You stopped mine with 1,000 small cruelties. Which one is worse? I never tried to kill you. Didn't you? Her voice broke. You killed who I was. Piece by piece. Suggestion by suggestion. You erased me so completely I thought drinking poison might be a relief. So tell me, Min-jae. If he deserves execution for attempted murder, what do you deserve for successful erasure? The silence in that basement was absolute. Seo-yoon looked up. Confused. Hopeful. Terrified. Min-jae's hand shook. The gun felt impossibly heavy. What do you want? He whispered. I want accountability, Zara said. Not execution. Not for him. Not for you. I want you to understand what you've done. Really understand it. And I want him gone. Exiled. Not dead. Gone. That's mercy. No. Zara's eyes were hard. Mercy would be forgiveness. This is just me being too tired to watch more violence. Even the violence I've earned the right to demand. Min-jae looked at his cousin. At his wife. At the gun in his hand. Then he made a choice he'd never made before. He listened to her. Seattle, he said to Seo-yoon. You have 48 hours. The real reckoning had just begun. 3 weeks later, Min-jae sat in Dr. Patel's office feeling more exposed than he'd ever felt in a business negotiation. Tell me why you're here, Dr. Patel said. My wife's demand. The words came out defensive. Clipped. Not your choice? Min-jae shifted in the leather chair. Everything in this office was designed for comfort. He hated all of it. She said therapy or divorce. Non-negotiable. And you chose therapy. I chose not to lose her. The admission cost him something. Again. Dr. Patel made a note. Again? I already lost her. 7 years ago. I just didn't notice until she was dying on a banquet hall floor. The hour was brutal. Uncomfortable. Necessary. Min-jae left with homework. Name 3 things he'd learned about Zara this week. Not things he'd told her. Things he'd learned by listening. He had no idea where to start. Zara signed the lease on a studio apartment in Itaewon on a Thursday. 1 bedroom. Small kitchen. View of nothing important. It was hers. Not the penthouse Min-jae had purchased. Not a property in the family portfolio. Hers. Her name on the lease. Her deposit. Her choice. She moved in with 2 suitcases. Left behind the handbox. The kanzashi pins. The wardrobe of muted colors designed to make her disappear. She bought new clothes. Bright ones. A yellow sundress. A red blazer. Colors that made her brown skin glow instead of vanish. She wore her natural hair. The twist out she'd abandoned 7 years ago. It caught the afternoon light streaming through her small window like a crown she'd forgotten she owned. When Min-jae called, she didn't answer immediately. Let it ring 3 times. 4. A small boundary. A tiny reclamation of her own time. When she did answer, he asked instead of commanded. "Can I see you this week?" Not, "I'll pick you up Friday." Not, "We have a family dinner Sunday." "Maybe Saturday," she said. "I'll let you know." "Okay." A pause. "You sound different." "I sound like myself." Another pause. Longer. "I don't think I ever knew what that sounded like." "No," Zara agreed. "You didn't." He was learning. Slowly. Clumsily. Asking questions about her day. Listening to the answers. Attending therapy. Reading the books Dr. Patel assigned. Sitting with the discomfort of his own cruelty. The marriage wasn't saved. Might never be. But Zara was. She hung up the phone. Made herself tea. Sat by her window watching Seoul move below her. And for the first time in 7 years, she took up space without apologizing. It was enough of a beginning.